We're going to build this project from scratch. I'm going to show you how to make your own custom effector to be able to change the color. And we're also going to build everything here in Unreal Engine. So stick around. Hey, how's it going everyone? My name is Brandon Clements, and let's go ahead and jump straight into our project. How we're going to create this is using Unreal Engine 5.4.0 preview version. If you actually don't have the preview version, you need to click up on the engine versions here, and once the list pops up, you're going to want to scroll all the way up to the top. You can see I already have all the newest versions installed. And if you don't see it, you're going to want to go all the way down to the tray in Windows, right click, exit, and restart the Epic Games launcher. Now it's going to take a while to install, but once you have it, we're going to go ahead and launch the engine. Okay, so once everything loads up, I'm going to go down to games. I'm going to choose a blank template project. Then I'm going to do ray tracing, desktop maximum, and then we're going to put in a name called MoGraph example, and we're going to go ahead and create our project. All right, so now we're in the engine. First thing we need to go to the plugins, which is in the top right under settings, plugins. We're going to type motion design, and we're going to go ahead and enable that. Hit yes and restart now. Okay, it should only take a few seconds for that to compile. And once it does, we're going to go to our content browser. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-N to start a new folder, and I'm going to call this maps. We're going to jump in here, right click, create a level, and we're going to call this MoGraph, and then we're going to double click in it and hit save. And then we can also come to our project settings under maps and modes. We're going to search for our MoGraph, which is right here. And what this will do is, so when we load up the engine, it will open this map for us automatically. And then a big thing that's going to change right here is this motion design button. It's going to change your whole interface, and this is great because it gives us everything we want. We have the motion design outliner, the operator stack, we have the sequencer, remote control, and we have a new template here to start dragging and dropping and creating items. If you don't see any of that, you will have a button for operator stack, remote control, material designer, create defaults, and transition logic right under the motion design mode here. So you're usually in selection mode, and we have all these fun modes. You're going to want to be in motion design for most of this tutorial, and then we're going to go ahead and create defaults. And what this will do is create a null object with everything outlined here. And I'm also going to hit Control-Shift-W for YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger for everyone so we can see. Okay, now that we have our giant interface, what I'm going to do is drag in a rectangle, and I'm also going to create another window under window, and then we're going to go to viewports and create a separate viewport here. And what this will do is allow me to kind of move around. I hit F on the keyboard to frame the object. And you're also going to want to make sure that this does not have cinematic control. So once we create our camera and drag it into this area and create our camera cuts for our sequencer, this is attached to our level, which is new in 5.4. I actually really like having everything attached to the level. We can go ahead and move this clip back and kind of make some area for us here. And you can see that once I expand this, it's our camera, our component, and all the different transforms and camera component attributes that we want to key. Okay, so right now that threw me into here, so I want to make sure that I'm not in cinematic control. I can actually jump out from piloting that camera, and then I can come over here and make sure that we're in the motion design viewport. So you can use your middle mouse to click and drag and move everything around. And I'm just going to make sure that everything kind of lines up for my background exactly how I want it. So I'm going to move these up and down. You can left click on the corners and just make sure they move up around the boundaries of the frame. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and rename this to background, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-S to go ahead and save all. And let's keep going. Okay, so now we're going to create the shapes, the triangular shapes that I showed you in the beginning. So let's go ahead and drag out a regular polygon, and I'm going to push it off the wall just a bit, and we're going to change the color to a nice blue. And this is just a simple material. We're actually going to create our own material later on. And then we're going to go ahead and hit 200 by 200, and we unlocked that. So now we have this shape, and we're going to create 3 sides, and that will make a triangle for us. Okay, with our triangle created, I'm going to click on the polygon. I'm going to come over to our operator stack. We're going to add a modifier called a plane cut, and I'm going to set that to 0, and it's going to create this kind of rectangular shape for us. And we're going to use this. We're going to add one more, which is going to be an extrude. We're going to scroll down and just put that at 10 centimeters so we have a little bit of depth. And then we're going to add a null. So I can just actually select the object and hit Control G on the keyboard to add a null actor. I'm just going to move it right outside so that I won't affect the transformation of this object. And I'm just going to pull the pivot to the very right corner. Now I have my snaps on, and I can actually show you my viewport. I have my snaps on. I have it set to 10, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to set it to 1. I'm going to drag once and then up once, so 1 unit. And then I'm going to put my polygon right under the null actor, Control D to duplicate, drag this out. Before I drag that out, I'm going to actually set it back to 10. And then I'm going to do a rotation around 120 degrees, and then move this back up to the side. We can actually zoom in with our motion design viewport. We can use our scroll wheel to zoom in really tight, and then we can make some room. And we're just going to turn off the bounding boxes so that we can see we have this nice little strip. And this is because we actually moved and offset it 1 unit in the Y direction and 1 unit in the Z direction. So let's continue, hit Control D. We'll make another copy, and we're going to move this up, rotate it another 120 degrees, negative 120 degrees, it was telling me. And then we'll move it down just right there and move it back. So we may need to adjust our snaps to 5, perhaps even 1 to get the exact look we're going for. And we can also change this to unlit mode so we can kind of see this just a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say that I am happy with that. I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, so now we have our shapes. I'm going to go ahead and put this back to lit mode and kind of make this a little bit bigger for us. And there we go. So this is the shape that I'm wanting. And I'm going to go ahead and pull all of our polygons out from being children to the children of the world. And we can go ahead and get rid of our placeholder null actors. And then I can select our polygons once more, hit Control G to group them. That puts it under another null actor. And then we can add this to a cloner. So I'm going to go ahead and left click on the cloner icon. And then I get this widget in our viewport. So I'll left click again to add a cloner. We'll 0 its position. And then we'll go ahead and delete the cube. We'll go back to our cloner. Sorry, I actually zeroed the position of our triangle mesh, so we'll pull that out just a little bit. Go back to our cloner, and we're going to throw this underneath the cloner. So that gives us copies of everything. So we're going to have to change our cloner to a circle. And I'm actually going to go back into our null object and just spin this down. Just like so. 90 degrees. We can hide our background if we want by using the eye in the outliner to toggle its visibility. And then we'll go ahead and type in 6. We get this cool pattern. We'll bring the radius into, yeah, let's do 180. That looks pretty cool. And then I can spin the cloner back up to, let's say 90. There we go. And let's look at what it looks like in the camera view. Looking pretty sweet. So the only thing we need to do now is just create duplicates of this cloner. We can't, in this version of the engine, create clones of a clone, but hopefully in the future we'll be able to do that. This is all running on Niagara in the background, which I'm going to show you in the shading portion once we get into the effectors. We're going to create our own custom effector, and it's going to be pretty neat. So definitely stick around for that. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate this cloner. And then we're going to go back to our snaps. With this interface being kind of tiny, it's kind of hard. We actually can't scroll our mouse wheel there, but we'll go back to 10 units. And we just want this to look cool in our camera view, okay? So let's say we move that into position, and let's go back to our camera and pilot that. So in order to do that, we are already in the camera cuts right here. But if I just go into the camera itself, it gives us this pilot actor highlight. And this is telling us that we can actually move this around if our camera is unlocked. Okay, so we'll pilot this backwards. And we can turn our background back on. Okay, looking pretty sweet. We're going to need a bigger background. So let's go ahead and scale that guy up just to make sure it fits the camera view. We can actually move it. Maybe reposition our camera a little bit. Cool, looking good. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. And before I forget, I need to lock my camera, and we'll toggle this back to the camera track. And let's continue. I'm going to go ahead and keep duplicating the cloners, and I'll speed the video up. Once we get back, we'll talk about how we can actually add some animation. Okay, so as I was recording this video, I actually stumbled across something interesting. The fact that we have to change all of the components on these cloners, like all the attributes, because I forgot to do that when we started copying them. But this leads me to a great teaching point of what we can do with editor utility widgets. So I'm going to go ahead, and I created a folder called editor utility widgets. So you can right click, and this is going to be a tool that we're going to create like our own little panel, a few buttons just to go ahead and change everything for us on the fly. Yes, I would rather script than go through manually and change things, because later on you may get to a point where you want to change things and you're not going to want to click through all those cloners, since we can't clone cloners, right? Okay, so editor utility widget, I'm going to just do the stack box. That's just the style that it's going to give me. So as we add, it'll just kind of like add it for us, all the elements in there. So I'm going to call this material 2, because I've already got one created here. And when you double click, you'll come into the actual editor. So this is like UMG editor, and I'm just going to add some buttons. I'm going to add a button. I'm going to add a checkbox. So I'm going to show you guys how to do something pretty cool with this. To make up for me forgetting to set everything properly before we duplicated it. And then I'm going to use something called a, let's see, details view. This is the details view is going to allow us to select a material from our content browser. We're going to use the checkbox to say, do we want to change the color and material of the selected actor or all the actors in the level? And then the button will just actually execute the function for us. Okay, so I'm going to set this to fill. I'm going to set the checkbox to fill, and we're going to set that to fill as well. So I'm just going to call this one materials view, materials detail view, just because. And checkbox will be selected actors, checkbox, and this will be not the help menu. This will be set material button. And then we're going to add some text in here so we actually know from a user interface standpoint what these do. So this will be set material. Oh, and I'm going to go ahead and scale up my interface. Maybe not that big, sorry. So this will be set material. I'm going to drag another text box for the checkbox. This will be selected actors, question. And then this will just, this will actually make sense once we see it in context. And then we're going to choose properties to show. Okay, and the properties to show, we actually need to go to the graph real quick to add a variable. So we're gonna, right here, add variables, and we're gonna call this new material. And this will just be of type material. And we'll compile that, and we need to come back to our designer. And then as we go to our details panel, we're going to say properties to show new material. So if we compile, we'll go ahead and save and run. You can see that it's undefined because we have not set it yet. So let's go over to the graph, and on the event construct, let's go ahead and just set it real quick. We need to come back to the designer. Materials view is a variable. That way we gain access to it here. And we're going to say set object. And we're actually going to get a reference to self. Okay. So we'll do something like that. Compile and run. And there we go. We get this cool little handy dandy material setter. Okay. This will be, is it selected? And then we actually have a button to run the function. Okay. Let's go ahead and stop that. And we need to go back. I hate switching back and forth between these views, but you know, it is what it is. This will be a variable, and also our checkbox will be a variable. So on the checkbox, I'm sorry, on the button, let's do the button first. We're going to come to the onClicked event. So when we click our button, we will get the editor, what's it called? An editor, forgot what it's called. Editor actor subsystem. There we go. And we will say, we'll get selected level actors. And then we're also going to do a branch, and we're going to say, get all level actors. Yeah, we'll do that. So, but our branch from our checkbox, let's go ahead and make sure we get on state change. We're going to promote this to a variable, and this will be selected actors, question mark. Okay, so that's set whenever we click the box. By default, we're just going to check it, make sure it's not selected, and by default it is not selected right there. Cool. Okay, so let's get this. We're going to branch. So either we go left or we go right. Either we're true or we're false. If we're true, selected level actors, we'll get the selected level actors. If false, get the false. Okay, and we're going to do some for each loops. For each. We'll do it up here as well. And then we're going to do a select node here. Okay, so this select node will say if our selected actors is true, which we need to switch these. So, if our selected actors is true, these are our selected actors, so that will be B. So this is false, this is true. Right there, and then we're gonna do a cast to Ava shape actor. So we're casting. And this execution wire can come from both directions, right? Because we can be on this execution line or we can be on this execution line with our selected, or just get all the level actors of type shape actor, Ava shape actor. And if this is true, we're going to do something to it. Okay, so this is kind of weird. We're going to get, actually, let me show you in the editor what I'm referring to, and I'm actually going to hide my face. Okay. So here in the level, if I select the regular polygon, you can see that I have a material drop down and it says asset, and then it allows me to put in an asset there. By default, it's going to say simple, just like this background is, right? So it says simple and solid. Well, where the heck does that even come from? Because this is, you can see, of class Ava shape actor, right? And that's what we're casting to. But we somehow need to get these properties. Well, these properties live on a little bit of shape mesh component and a little bit of Ava shape rectangle dynamic mesh. So shape component and dynamic mesh, which if I hover over this, you can see that, let's see. Don't tell me about the root component. Tell me about the shape component. Let's see. U dynamic mesh component is a mesh component similar to procedural mesh, yada, yada, yada. It's not showing me what I want. Let's go to this here. There we go. So again, shape component and a dynamic mesh component. But on the shape component, it says, notice in parentheses, shape component and dynamic mesh component. So I feel like these two are very related in some ways. They're both components, so they live under this mesh, or sorry, the Ava shape actor. So, okay, with that in mind, I just needed to show you that. So, you know, if you're on your own journey, you need to be able to figure out your own problems, right? So that's kind of a way to look at things. So we need to get something from here. So we want to get those components. And if I type get and I go down to variables, I can see dynamic mesh and I can see shape mesh component. So let's get the dynamic mesh. Heck, we'll get the other one as well, because I think we're going to need it later on. Okay. So dynamic mesh, now that we have this, there's something in here called, it's under mesh. So get mesh datas. This is super weird, right? Now this, if you haven't seen it before, is a map. And what it is if you look over here on the left-hand side under details, it takes an integer and then it takes a structure. So this is a key, and then you get a struct here. So a bunch of different attributes live under our struct. So I'm going to do a clear, and this will just wipe this information away from here. So this will have no map at all. So we'll clear, and then we need to add. Okay, so we'll do this, and we're going to make it pretty. By double clicking, you can add a reroute wire. And if you select a line, you can hit Q on your keyboard to line them up if you're OCD like me. So we'll right click and split the struct, and we're going to change this to type asset. And then we can actually go ahead and get our new material and pipe it into here. So we're going to get the new material. And then we're not done yet. We're actually going to get the material from here. Get. Actually, you don't need a get. We just need a set. So set material. And there we go. Set material. And pipe that in there. And of course, wrestle with this to make it readable. And pipe this into there. So it should look something a little bit like this. Oh boy. Nothing like tuning in to watch me wrestle with these things, right? Okay, so let's double check real quick. So we're going to check a Boolean here to make sure either we're getting our selected levels or getting all the actors of type. Let's loop through them, and we cast to the type here of Ava shape actor. We need to get the mesh deltas, clear it, and then we're going to put our own map into there with our own material. And we're also going to do that for the shape component. Okay, let's see if that will work. All right, here's our handy dandy little tool. I'm going to say MoGraph, and I'm going to try and turn this background selected red. All right, no dice. Let's figure out why. Okay, so there is one thing that I forgot to do, and this is kind of my inexperience a little bit with the dynamic mesh and these shape meshes. We need to drag off from our shape mesh and notify that it has been updated. So notify mesh updated. We'll do that. Okay. So yeah, we could do something like this. There we go. Nice and neat, huh? Compile, we'll stop, we'll run. All right, let's try to turn that background red. MoGraph, selected, set material. And okay, so this object, this is not what I want. So, whoopsie. Let's drag off of this and say select. And I just want this bracket here. So, my bad. My bad. Let's put that in there. Okay. Compile, run. MoGraph. There we go. And I forgot to tick selected. So the other big thing that I forgot to mention with this is I think this is just something with Niagara and the way it's set up right now in this current preview version. The way that we're going to be able to see our changes is just moving a block here. It's just something like that. And then I can do save all. So now that I've adjusted the level and made the change, notice if I come down to here and unhide my null actor, you can see these are red, but the cloner is not updating. And even if I force update the cloner, nothing happens. If I take this out and put it back in, there we go, it's updated. I'm not going to do that for everyone. So what I'll do is I will Control Shift save, Control Shift S to save all. Let's reopen the editor. Okay, and as you can see, everything is now red. So you come here for the thumbnails and the promise to learn, you stay for my tangents. I'm sure that's what it is. It's gotta be. Okay, so let's actually create some materials here. We're gonna need a few of these. So I've already got one. Let's call this one, instead of MoGraph, let's call this one background. We're going to open this. We're going to change. We're actually going to convert this to a parameter. We'll call this color. And maybe we would want to adjust the specular and roughness. We know it's not going to be metallic because this is just the background. So for roughness, we'll go 0 to 1. For now, we'll have it at 0.5. We'll have this at 0.5, 0 to 1. Okay, so we'll apply save. And then we will create a material instance from this. So background instance, I'm going to create another folder, call it MI. I'll save before I chuck it in there. So I like to have my actual materials living outside and the material instances in their own folder inside. And then we're going to call this one clones. Clones mat, background mat, why not? We'll put the mat there. So we know it's a master material and everything's all good to go. Okay, let's go ahead and go into our material instance. We're gonna use our tool that we just made because we spent a lot of time doing it, right? So let's open, let's run. Let's make sure we have selected actors. We have our background selected. We're gonna say background instance. So if we actually try to go and use our material slot, you can see that it's not the correct type. So what we can do is in our tool, we'll just open this back up and we'll go into here. We're going to actually change the type of this variable to material instance. So this will be an object reference material instance. We'll go ahead and change the type here. And the blueprint checker will go through and do its thing. We're going to hold control, move that wire up. So now when we actually, let's go ahead and run this once more. So now we have our background instance here. So just another learning thing here for different material types and different data types, I should say. So we're going to have that as selected. We're going to grab that and we're going to say set material. We can change the color. So we'll change this to like a orange. something like that. That looks good. And let's close. And then for the clones, we're actually going to do something really interesting here. We're going to use another type of tool that's in our toolbox, and it's going to be our material parameter collection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that so we can start creating our material parameter collection. I'm getting to the content browser by Control-Shift if you were wondering. Right click and let's go to material. We're going to create a material parameter collection. This is going to be called, let's call it MoGraph. MPC MoGraph. So we'll open the material parameter collection up, and let me explain what a material parameter is. Material parameter collection, an MPC is something that kind of lives outside of levels. So it's not like an actor. It's a data asset, essentially. It's a data asset, which is very similar to what data assets are in Unreal Engine. But it can live outside of materials, outside of levels, and you can control the colors and the scalar parameters from here. So type vector is a color or X, Y, and Z. So you can have X, Y, Z, W, or you could have any 4 scalars that together make a vector 4, or any 3 scalars together make a vector 3, which could be colors and actual locations or rotations. So I think you guys get the idea. So we'll go ahead and we'll name this color with a capital C. That's important. And then we're going to set the color to like a purplish. And let's go ahead and create another vector. This will be color 2. Let's do color 2, and we'll name this a color 1. Okay. So color 2 will be pink and blue. And then we're also going to have another scalar in here. We'll call this one... Actually, no, we won't do a scalar. We're going to do a vector. And I'm going to call this... let's call it loc for location. Okay. And we'll save. Okay, awesome. So that's our location and our 2 colors, and we're going to drag that into our material. So as we drag that in, we can now gain access to color 1. I'll copy paste, color 2, and our location. Okay, so these are very powerful to be able to use outside of a material. I just want to make that like abundantly clear that you can do some pretty cool stuff with creating your own different types of applications. So I am thinking about what I'm going to do here, and what I'll do is for the location, I'm going to do a component mask, and we are just going to get the G channel. Okay, so and the reason being is let's go ahead and create some effectors. Okay, so with all of the cloners selected, I can come down here, and I'm actually going to hide my face just in case I mess up here and show you something you actually can't see. Let me go ahead and scale this back up real quick. I'm going to add an effector right here. So I can spawn a linked effector by clicking on that, and you can see as I had everything selected, it created too many effectors for me. So I'll just go ahead and get rid of all of them but one. And of course, they are not linked anymore. So let's just go ahead, and with all of the cloners selected again, I'm just going to grab the effector here. And this effector will change to a plane. So you can see now as I move this along on the G, notice I'm coming back to our point here. Let's go ahead and maybe scale up the thickness so you guys can see it. There we go. So as I move this along the G, notice it's the Y, X, Y, Z, RGB, the G. It's going to move the position of these guys. Okay, so that's kind of cool. We'll pop them out, right? Using that. Let's go ahead and create another effector by Control D. And maybe we'll scale this one down so they're not Z fighting as much. And this one will do, instead of the location, let's do like rotation on this. So this will flip them, and I'm going to take this and place it, just drag and drop it underneath. And this will be called Effector Rot for rotation. And this will be Effector for location. And this is not in effect quite yet. So we need to select all of our cloners again. We could create another button here. It's kind of funny that these are stacked on top of one another. We could have created another button to go ahead and select all of our cloners. That's something I think you guys could probably figure out on your own, just from doing the little run through that we did before. But I need to add another index in here and add the rotation. Okay, now we get something kind of interesting. And let's just make this a little bit bigger so we can concentrate here. So now as we flip these around, they create another really interesting shape and pattern. Okay, so awesome. Looking really good. Let's change linear to maybe bounce out. We'll try that on both of them, bounce out. And remember, you got to grab the parent. There we go. And they kind of like bounce into place in this like really interesting kind of way. So super, super cool. Okay, and let's go ahead and finish up our material that will drive the color as we push this through. So we're going to look at G, right? So we're taking the location of our effector, which will soon be the effector, and we're moving it on the G, on the Y. And I'm going to throw down an if statement here. I also need a particle position. So particle world position. So this will give us the absolute coordinates. And the reason I'm getting a particle is, remember, this is Niagara under the hood. So we actually need to get the position of each particle, which is the cloner. Because, yeah, it's all running through Niagara. And let's go ahead and copy paste this one. So I just need the Y position of the clones, of the particles, the position of our effector, and let's do some if-thens, right? So this is the fun part. So if the position of this, we're going to compare it to B, then it needs to be this color. So if A is greater than B, you'll be this color. If the particles location is greater than this location, be that color. That's what it's basically saying. Okay, so with that in mind, we can take this and do something else with it as well. So I'm just going to copy this again, and we're going to do the exact same thing, A and B. If this, then that. That's all the logic is. And I'm going to use this to drive the roughness and also the metallic. And then I can create some parameters here. So I can just hold 1 with my left hand on the top row key of the numbers and left click. So that will give me 2 scalars. We'll go ahead and plug those in. We'll go 0 and 1. Okay, and that will be for roughness and metallic. And yeah, there we go. So you can kind of see, it's kind of funny that it does that. But you can see that the roughness goes from 0 to 1. So blue is rough and pink is shiny and it's metallic. Okay, so pretty cool. Let's go ahead and apply that. We built our setup here. One thing we need to do to finish out our material is we need to go ahead and let's go ahead and make, you could go ahead and right click and make these parameters if you'd like, but I'm just going to keep them as is since they do drive 2 different parameters here. But you could do something like a lerp, like a linear interpolate. Plug that into roughness, plug that into metallic. You could do something like that, and then you could have a roughness for pink, roughness for blue, metallic for pink, metallic for blue. And And maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that because yeah, I've already done it. Why not? This will be color 1's metallic. Color 2 roughness. And roughness. Okay, so this will go 0 to 1. Actually, let's select all of them and make them 0 to 1. We're going to make the metallic of this 1. There we go. And the roughness of this 0. And the roughness of the blue, we'll go ahead and set it to 0.4. Okay, so our blue is kind of rough, and then this looks metallic. Okay, that's actually pretty sweet. So let's go ahead, save that. We're going to create a material instance of that. Save it. We'll throw it in here. And let's go ahead and do a save all. Okay, and we need to run our script one more time. You can see where this comes in handy, right? So let's do instance. Let's call this cloner. What did we call our guy? Clones, of course. So let's say clones, material instance. And we're not going to do selected actors. We'll just say set material. We'll take this one, select actor. We'll do background, set material. And let's just kind of move something real quick. There we go. We'll move that back a little bit. Save, and let's restart the engine real quick. Okay, we're back. So you can see we are now greeted with something actually pretty cool. We're getting a lot closer. Our final step of this is we need to create a blueprint. So we're going to go into a folder. I've created one that's called blueprint. We need to create a new blueprint class, and we need to inherit from a class. So if you're not familiar with inheritance and programming, it's basically like we want to take an effector, but we want to change some of its properties, but we want to keep most of what makes it unique the same, right, as any other thing. So let's type in Effector, and you can see here there is Effector, actor, motion design, actor. We'll select that. We'll call this BP underscore Effector. Very generic name. You can name it whatever you like. But we're going to double click this guy, and you can see when we open up the blueprint editor that we have a lot of different states basically of what this could be. So we have a sphere, inner and outer, box, inner and outer, and then plane, inner and outer. What I'm going to do by default is I'm going to set this to plane, and we'll change our state from, I believe I did something like, I think it was this, right? Out bounce? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. We'll go ahead and change that. And what we'll do is we're going to come into the construction script. So if you haven't used the construction script, it's a really great tool to run blueprint logic inside of the editor. So you can use it to create like level design tools, all kinds of stuff, really. I cram a lot of things into the construction script and expose the variables so that you can see them in the details panel, and you can just like change things around. Super nice to have in the construction script. And then in the event graph, this is during runtime. So essentially whatever we create in the construction script, this is not like a 100%, rule, but whatever we create in the construction script, we want to make sure that it happens at runtime as well, just for this project. Okay, so we need to somehow connect this effector. So let's go ahead and throw it into the world. There we go. And I'm going to place it under our location effector and go ahead and zero out its transforms. And then let's see if we can actually scale it up, right? So that's us right there. We've got it in the world. Let's call it BP underscore effector so we know what it is. And then we're going to grab all of our clones, and I'm going to hide my big fat head, and we're going to add an array element here, and this will be our BP effector. So make sure that you add it. That's something that you can easily forget. We'll go back to the blueprint editor. Okay, so in our construction script, let's go ahead and let's get a few variables that we know that we want to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and get actor location, and let's break this so that we can get a reference to a material parameter collection, of course, that we've made, right? So let's create a variable. We're going to call this material parameter collection. Material parameter collection, object reference. There we go. Let's rename this to NPC because it's a mouthful. And compile, save. We need to change this to our MoGraph material parameter collection, and we'll get it. We're going to get this, and we're going to set a set the vector parameter value that was named. Let's see. Let's promote this to a variable. The name of that is well, let's go look at it, right? So double click this, loc. All right, so let's copy this, put it in our parameter name, and this will be, we'll just rename the variable to loc. Okay, the variable name can be whatever you want it to be, whatever makes sense to you. And then the actual string value that goes in here has to be the exact same. It has to be the exact same. Okay. All right, so that's pretty much it. This will run in editor. Oh, of course, we need to split this out and do RGB. RGB. Hold control to move the knots in and out. And let's go ahead and copy this. Let's put it on the event graph during, we're going to do it during tick. Okay, you want to be careful with event tick, just as a rule of thumb. If you're new to Unreal Engine and you're getting into programming and scripting, tick runs every single frame. And I'm not talking about seconds, I'm talking about frames. So if your game is runs at 120 frames a second, essentially this is going to run every single time the editor's ticking. So every frame, essentially this logic's going to happen. But we want that to happen when we render out our video because we want this to keep up and look really, really nice. You can actually change the editor tick interval by, you can just select the actual blueprint itself, and then you can change it here. So if you don't want it to tick every single frame, you can do 0.1, 0.01, 0.05, etc. So I'll just go ahead and leave it at default. Just want to mention it to you guys. Okay, so let's see what happens when we move. Whoa. So that's pretty rad. One thing that we need to do, actually, let me show you an example. So we'll go back to our camera. Remember our camera that we set up? Wow, it was a long time ago. So if we were to drag this into here to animate, so let's go ahead and drag it in. We're going to get our transform on frame 0. We'll set a keyframe on frame 60. Why not 60? We'll change the location. You can change the generic kind of default keyframe. I'm going to set it to linear because I hate the cubic for most things. Nothing happens. Well, what the heck? Why doesn't it happen? I just saw it happen in the editor. Well, you need to come into your blueprint class. You need to go to class settings, and you need to tick where it says run construction script in sequencer. Compile, save, and if we actually animate it, that would have been a good example if I actually animated it. There we go. And move this back. There we go. Okay, so let's hit play. And of course, I do not have auto key set, so that would help. We'll move this back, and then we'll play. Okay, so let's see if we go over here and we play this forward. Okay, so we got it almost there. It's not quite working. It works in the editor. It doesn't work when we scrub. We have our blueprint is set to run construction script in sequencer. So, well, the only thing that's left to to do is actually add it to the sequencer. So it's easy. It's as easy as that, right? Easy. So let's turn this into game view. We'll hide. Actually, we can do game view down there. I'm still getting used to some of these buttons. I love them. But yeah, I'm not used to them being down there. Okay, cool. So yeah, everything's working. The only thing we need to do now is just change up the lighting a little bit. So I'm gonna do. I'm gonna delete this direct light, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start adding some. Let's go to motion design mode. Just gonna add some lights real quick. We'll add a light to the scene. We'll come up here, rectangle light. We're gonna do this pretty quick. I'm gonna move this over here. This is actually one of my most favorite things to do. It's super duper fun. I'm gonna change this to EV so that we can get exposure values. I'm gonna kind of set this up here like it's hitting the back there. Wow. And yeah, something like that. And I'm also going to change the type here, the shadow type, to cast ray trace shadows. I'm gonna set that to enabled. And I'm gonna make this pretty large. So we'll do like 256 by 256. Something like that. Let's see, we're watching over here just to make sure everything looks good. And then I'm gonna actually turn the attenuation radius up so that it actually casts pretty far into the scene. So something like that. Move it away from the wall. Yeah, lighting is actually super fun to do in Unreal Engine. You can kind of get lost doing it. As you can see, I could spend just a ton of time here doing stuff. So let's say 7. Let's go down one stop. So I think something like 5, maybe 6. Okay, cool. So let's move on. We'll move this over. I'm going to change the rotation of this. This will kind of be like almost like a backlight type thing. Okay, let's do like, there we go, 9. Okay, awesome. Since we moved our wall back, we got to scale it up. Okay, I'm holding middle mouse to just kind of pan around. Looks good. Okay, and once we're happy with this, we can save it. We'll go ahead and do a save all. And then we need to set up our render. So I'm going to show you that really quick. You can do different crops here. So you can do 16 by 9. You can also do the a custom crop. So you can set it to custom. And let's see, if you did like 0.59, I believe, is the ratio for 9 by 16. So if you did 9 divided by 16, 0.56 25. So we'll do that. So now we have something for social media, maybe. Change the focal length of that. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so we get like a swipe going. Also, on the camera itself, I want to make sure that the motion blur, so we're going to do this on our post-process volume, make sure that's turned off, but on my camera, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, and I'm going to set this to target FPS 60, 0.5 is good, and this will give us better motion blur. If you put the motion blur on the camera, trust me on that, you won't get any errors or anything. That's, you know, something historically that has happened in Unreal Engine with me in the past. So let's go ahead and let's create our own config. We'll do JPEG, why not? We'll do anti-aliasing. We'll do, we'll not add any console variables. And I think that's it. So anti-aliasing, we'll do 2 and I don't know, 24. That's pretty high, but it will look pretty sweet. Our game overrides should basically add in all the cinematic settings that we need. So it should turn off all the game stuff, make everything look really pretty. We need to do camera cut, use camera cut for warm-up, render warm-up frames, and I'm going to put a lot of warm-up frames in here because remember, the cloner system is using Niagara, and we need to have some warm-up frames to make sure Niagara appears on screen. And then we'll do 1080 by 1920, and we'll go ahead and save it to the default directory, which is the movie renders folder, and that should be good. Let's go ahead and hit accept, and let's render it. Okay, one more thing I forgot to mention. This is a really important thing. Under the anti-aliasing, I set this to 128. I need to make sure that I pull this back to at least 128, so we'll pull that back further. And let's go ahead and render again. So now you see the warm-up actually finished, and all of our particles are in the scene view. So this should work nicely. Okay, so I went ahead and threw this into DJV just so we could look at it, and it's way too fast. It's shouldn't be that fast, but it looks pretty cool, and I hope you guys learned a lot on how you can use inheritance with inheriting that Effector blueprint class and making your own kind of blueprints with Effectors. It's kind of an interesting way to go about messing with some of the motion design tools in here. And then also, I hope you guys found it interesting to be able to create your own editor utility blueprint widgets, which allow you to kind of automate and script things. You know, if we had a really large scene where we needed to update these cloners, and the state of which the engine is in right now in the motion design mode isn't really capable to refresh all those cloners all at once, and we can't clone clones, so you have to figure out ways to get around that, and you can totally do it pretty easily within the engine. There's a lot of really great scripting tutorials that are out there if you want to jump in and learn blueprints. I highly recommend you do, just to kind of understand how the engine works. I think it will go a long way in your motion design journey just using Unreal Engine here. So if you guys have any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comment section below. I do read every comment and answer every question that I get, so definitely leave it down below if you guys have any questions or recommend what you'd like to see in the future. I'm always happy to read those as well. So thank you guys for sticking around this long in the video. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.